You notice it in small moments, when you catch your reflection, when you hear your own voice, when you react in ways that don't feel like you. There is this quiet distance, like you're watching yourself from a few steps away. You recognize the face, the habits, the history, but something feels off, something feels unfamiliar. You think about who you used to be, the way you laughed, the things that mattered, the parts of you that felt easy, natural. You don't know exactly when it changed. There was no clear moment, no announcement. Just a slow shift, a gradual drifting from the version of you that once felt solid. You notice it in your reactions, how you stay quieter now, how you hold back, how you don't speak up the way you used to. You wonder when you learned to edit yourself so much, when you started choosing safety over honesty, when you decided it was easier to disappear a little than to be fully seen. There's a strange grief in this, not loud, just heavy. You feel it when you think about old memories, old jokes, old dreams. You don't feel sad exactly. You feel disconnected, like you're flipping through photos of someone you used to know well. You ask yourself quiet questions. Where did you go? When did you start hiding? Why does everything feel harder now? The questions don't demand answers. They just sit there, patient, waiting. You don't hate who you are now, but you don't recognize yourself either. You feel like a stranger in your own body sometimes, like you're learning your own edges all over again. You try to remember what it felt like to move through the world without this constant self-awareness, without this constant second-guessing. Right now, you're just noticing it, the distance, the unfamiliarity, the quiet ache of missing yourself. You're not fixing it. You're not explaining it. You're just sitting with it. And this is where you're being met. You didn't wake up one day and decide to become different. It happened slowly, in small moments, in quiet adjustments. You learned how to soften yourself in certain rooms, how to be louder in others, how to shrink when you felt too visible, how to become what felt safest in the moment. You adapted, because that's what humans do. You read the room. You noticed what was welcomed and what wasn't. You learned which parts of you got smiles, which parts got silence, which parts made people uncomfortable. So you edited yourself without even realizing you were doing it. You thought you were just growing, maturing, becoming easier to be around. You remember the first times you held something back, a thought, a reaction, a truth. You told yourself it wasn't worth the conflict, that it was better to keep the peace, that you could carry it alone. And then it became a habit. You learned how to swallow things quickly, how to make yourself smaller without making it obvious. You didn't mean to lose pieces of yourself. You just put them away for later, for a safer time, for a better place. You thought you would come back to them. You always planned to. But life kept moving, and you kept adjusting. There's a strange tenderness in realizing this. You weren't fake. You weren't weak. You were trying to survive, to belong, to stay connected. You were responding to the world around you, doing the best you could with what you had. You look at yourself now and feel confused, but there is also understanding there, for how you got here, for why you changed. It wasn't random. It wasn't careless. It was protective. It was human. Changing like that cost you more than you noticed at first. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It happened quietly in the background of your life. Your confidence softened. Your voice got smaller. You started to question your instincts before you trusted them. You wondered if you were being too much or not enough, sometimes both at once. You felt tired in a way sleep didn't fix, a deep tired, the kind that comes from constantly monitoring yourself, from checking your words, your tone, your reactions. You became careful, not because you wanted to be, because it felt safer that way. Your body learned to stay alert, even in rooms that were supposed to feel calm. You stopped sharing certain things, the messy thoughts, the big feelings, the parts of you that didn't feel polished. You didn't want to burden anyone. You didn't want to make things heavy, so you carried it quietly. You learned how to be the easy one, the agreeable one, the one who didn't need much. There were moments you missed yourself. The way you used to speak freely, the way you laughed without checking the room first, the way you didn't apologize for existing. That version of you feels far away now, like someone you used to know well but haven't talked to in years. You might feel angry when you look back, at what you allowed, at how much you shrank. That anger makes sense, but there is sadness there too, for the parts of you that went quiet just to stay safe, for the pieces you set aside without realizing how long they would be gone. You didn't disappear on purpose. You adapted, you adjusted. You did what felt necessary at the time, but it still took something from you, and now you're starting to feel the absence. Something starts to change, but not in the way you expect. There is no big realization, no clear moment where everything makes sense. It's quieter than that. You just notice yourself pausing, catching your reflection and not looking away so fast, sitting with a feeling instead of pushing it down. These moments are small, but they add up. You start to see the patterns more clearly, how you learned to adjust, how you learned to disappear in certain spaces, how you learned to become acceptable instead of authentic. You don't judge it. You don't shame yourself for it. You just notice it, like finally seeing the outline of something you've been carrying for a long time. You feel tired of pretending you're fine when you're not, tired of smoothing everything over, tired of editing yourself before you even speak. There is a quiet exhaustion that settles in, not dramatic, just honest. You realize how much energy it takes to stay hidden, how much effort it costs to keep parts of yourself locked away. You begin to feel a small ache for yourself, for the version of you that learned to disappear, for the times you swallowed your truth because it felt safer. You don't rush to fix it. You don't promise yourself you'll be different tomorrow. You just let yourself feel it, the grief, the confusion, the tenderness. There is something gentle happening here, a soft awareness. You start to understand that you didn't change because you wanted to. You changed because you were trying to survive, to belong, to stay connected. That matters. That deserves compassion, even if you don't know what to do with it yet. This isn't healing, not yet. It's just seeing, really seeing, without looking away, without rushing past it. You don't know where this leads. You only know that something inside you is paying attention now, and that feels important. You are here now, still tender, still unsure, but standing in a slightly different place than before. You don't suddenly recognize yourself again. It's not like the old version of you walks back in and everything feels familiar. It's quieter than that. You just notice that you're paying attention now, to your reactions, to your silences, to the moments when you disappear without realizing it. You start to feel curious instead of critical. When you go quiet, you notice it. When you hold back, you see it. Not to shame yourself, not to force change, just to understand. You're learning your own patterns again, like meeting yourself for the first time, but gently, without interrogation. There are moments when you almost hear your old laugh in your head, when a part of you wants to speak without filtering. Sometimes you let it, sometimes you don't. Both are okay. You're not demanding courage from yourself. You're not setting goals about being more authentic. You're just noticing what feels true in your body, what feels safe, what feels like too much right now. You're beginning to accept that you might not go back to who you were. That person lived in a different season, with different needs, different protections. But that doesn't mean you're lost. It just means you're changing, slowly, quietly, in ways that don't need an audience. You feel steadier here, not confident, not healed, just steadier. Like you're standing in your own life instead of watching it from the side. You don't rush to label it. You don't need to make it mean anything yet. You're just here, breathing, existing, letting yourself take up a little more internal space. There will be days when you feel distant from yourself again, when everything feels unfamiliar. That will happen. You don't panic about it anymore. You recognize it as part of the process, not a failure, just another moment of learning who you are now. You're not trying to become someone new. You're just slowly meeting the version of you that exists today, without pressure, without a deadline, without a performance. This is where things are clear again.